Okay. Hi guys, good evening. Welcome to this webinar on lab-grown diamonds. We are extremely thankful to GJEPC for organizing the lab-grown diamond, as we believe this is going to be the future, at least for the Indian economy, and it is likely going to play a very vital role in reviving the sector, which has just seen a downfall in the last 3 to 4 years. Uh, amongst we are having four panelists with us at the moment. We are having Pooja Sheth, who is the founder of Limelight Diamonds. Uh, Pooja is she's the director and founder of Limelight Diamonds, who aspires to create a luxury niche in the world of lab-grown diamonds. She is an investment banker. She was an investment banker rather before joining Limelight, and she's having professional education from LSE and Harvard Business School. She heads the strategy and operations team at Limelight Diamonds. Thank you so much, Pooja.
Thank you. Pleasure being here.
We also have Mr. Parag Agrawal, who's the co-founder and CEO of Fiona Diamonds, which is one of the first brands to enter the lab-grown diamond space in our country. He has more than 19 years of experience in this space and holds a BE degree in electronics engineering. In fact, Fiona is one of the only brands which is into lab-grown, natural and moissanite. So I think amongst the three, he'll be able to add a lot of value in helping us compare the differences between all the stone and what the perception of buyers have been. Thank you so much, Parag, for making it to this webinar.
Thank you, my pleasure.
We have Sanket Patel, who's a third generation entrepreneur hailing from a diamond, a background of a family of diamantiers. He has played a vital role in setting up Diabond, which is one of the leading suppliers of CVD diamonds in our country. He has a state-of-the-art manufacturing facility in Surat. Thank you so much, Sanket, for making it to this webinar.
Thank you, Mayank.
And last but not the least, we have Ranveer Singh ji from SBI. He's the head of the branch at BDB. He has played a critical role in supporting the trade and personally believes that lab-grown diamonds can be a game changer for the gem and jewelry sector. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Without wasting much time, since we have such intellectual participants and panelists here, I would just like to give a quick 2-minute introduction on this webinar. Well, for most of them who don't know, our panelists are the ones who are going to probably brief you through the entire ecosystem of lab-grown diamonds. And for those of all who know about lab-grown diamonds, there are broadly 4 or 5 aspects which are extremely critical for the country. Firstly, it's a forex earner. Secondly, it's acting as a substitute for imports. Thirdly, it will also probably attract foreign investments into the country. The fourth thing which I feel, in fact, is the most important is employment generation. Be it our country or be it any other country, I think what the challenge that we face is unemployment. And I think lab-grown diamonds is going to play a huge role in creating employment for masses in the next 5 to 7 years. Just a key fact that I would like to bring about here is today we are having a total world population of about 7.98 billion, of which probably only 2 to 3% can actually afford a natural diamond due to the steep price point. So in an all, we are having about 140 to 150 million carats that are being mined, cut and polished annually. These are all natural diamonds. Now, lab-grown diamonds being socially ethical and affordable, we expect at least 10 to 15% of the population that will be able to buy these lab-grown diamonds. So if one actually works out the annual demand for these lab-grown diamonds can actually be close to about 1200 million carats a year. And assuming that 90% of the business still remains in the country for cutting and polishing, we are looking at a rise in the employment right from about 5 lakhs at the moment to upwards of 40 to 50 lakhs. So we all, right here at this forum, we want to talk about, this ecosystem that we are having on the lab grown diamonds, what the challenges are, what the potential and what the opportunities can be for us as a country. So let us just start with the basics. Let us start with Pooja. Pooja, if you could probably just throw some light for the audience about what lab grown diamonds really are.
Sure. So lab-grown diamonds, in simple words, is essentially what they do is replicate the entire growing process that happens under the surface of the earth above. Lab-grown diamonds typically are made or produced through two different methods. One is CVD, which is chemical vapor deposition, and this is primarily the method which is happening and largely developed in India. And the other one is HPHT, which is high pressure, high temperature, which is it's a different form of technology which China uses to produce diamonds. Now, what does CVD do? CVD exactly replicates the diamond creation process. It takes a natural diamond, cuts a thin layer of that, and then we place it in the plasma reactor. And in the same temperature environment that the diamond gets below the surface of the earth is created above in this reactor. So the same temperature pressure is set and the same gases are infused. Slowly, under the temperature pressure, the carbon, because diamond is nothing but made out of carbon starts separating from the gas and starts forming layers on top of this natural diamond seed as we call it. It's a thin layer of a natural diamond. So that slowly grows into your CVD rough diamond, right? And what is the difference between this rough diamond and the rough diamond that we get from below the surface? Absolutely nothing. It is just that the seed is cut in a squarish form. So these rocks grow in more of a cubical shape as opposed to the rocks from under the surface being a little bit more D-shaped. But in terms of the chemical, thermal, physical, optical characteristics, there's absolutely no difference. The best way, the simplest way of understanding this is a test tube baby technology. Why can't we walk on the road and identify? Can we go and identify, oh, that's an IVF baby or a test tube baby and that's a naturally born baby? You cannot do that. That's only because what we are doing is we're taking the genes of the DNA and then giving it a different environment to grow. Similarly, over here also, all we are doing is taking the DNA of a natural diamond, but just simply giving it a different environment to grow. Now, coming to the second process of high pressure, high temperature, which happens in China, that is a little bit of a different process. What they do is essentially they start with graphite and then they mix molten metal influx with that graphite. And that they slowly sort of rain under temperature pressure, they rain that on top of the natural diamond seed. So what happens is that the carbon that separates from this mixture comes with metal impurities in them. And that slowly grows into a rough diamond with metal impurities. So what CVD does is gives you the type 2A diamond, which even in natural diamonds, only 2% of natural diamonds ever are nitrogen free. And their shine and brightness, because they don't have nitrogen present in them, their shine and brightness is far superior than any other diamond. And these diamonds have been historically been given a classification of type 2A diamonds. Now in CVD, in that process, it is controlled to an extent that I can make sure that no other gas gets into it, which is why there's no nitrogen that gets involved in this, because of which all CVD diamonds get a type 2A classification. But contrary to that, in HPHT, because there are metal impurities that are present, they will never receive the type 2A classification. And that typically is the certification is where you will be able to identify between a CVD and an HPHT. And because of the molten metal, HPHT typically has a black tinge that people can usually see. So largely, these are the two brackets under which these diamonds can be classified.
Got it. Thank you so much, Pooja. So Sanket from Diabond, one of the growers here with us, let us ask him, as to which process he's using, whether it's the HPHT or the CVD, like you just explained.
Yeah, hi, Mark. So we in Green Lab Diamonds, we use the CVD process,
All right.
right? The carbon vapor deposition. The HPHT part, as Pooja said already, there's hardly anybody in India doing this right now. There is a company coming up very soon who are going to grow the HPHT stones in India. But as of now, I haven't heard of anyone who's doing this process as of yet. But with CBD, it's much more purer, as she explained already. It's better quality. And I think it's the most closest to calling it a natural.
All right.
Like there's no difference, like the test tube baby, natural baby, once it's grown, once it's polished, once it's old, once it's studied, no one's going to really know whether this one was a test tube baby and this one was a naturally conceived baby, you know. So there's hardly any difference. We use this process. We've come into this industry 3.5 years back with our growing unit. And as you've seen already, like the progress we've done for these past years. And yeah, I mean, most of it, she's already, explained how it's happening. So I don't need to add anything in it.
So Sanket, how different is the manufacturing process when you compare, a natural stone to, a lab grown stone?
See, I'll tell you. So we are in this diamond industry since the past 45 years, right? And we've got equipments which were used back then. We've got newer equipment, a newer version of the old equipments, like the polishing wheel and everything. So it's exactly the same. We haven't added or removed anything from the whole channel. So there is no difference. There is the same human skill. You need skilled humans to polish the stone. The same strength. There's actually no scientific difference. So there's no difference in polishing them.
So I think apart from the origin of the stone, which is not from a mine, but a laboratory, everything else remains the same.
Everything else remains the same.
Okay.
And the whole channel remains the same as well. Like we already pre-planned. So, with the natural diamonds, they purchase, they have auction houses, and here we get it on hand.
Right.
Yeah. Sorry, if I can just add to that, a lot of people out of curiosity always ask us, that do lab grown diamonds also get in color clarity, whether do they have a range of color clarity, or can I just press a button and say, oh, I want DIF, that's it. I just want the best form of diamonds. So, so just to add to, clarify that's not possible. The idea is like, again, going back to the test tube baby analogy, like how you can't decide whether to be a boy or a girl. The same way the growing process, within this reactor is completely natural. Because typically your inclusions are they occur during the growing process. Whether there's a crack during the growing process, or whether there's an air bubble that gets left behind, or the carbon doesn't decompose. These are the reasons why you would have inclusions which define your color clarity in a diamond. Now that happens as it's growing inside the reactor as well. So it is not in any one of us. So Limelight is actually backed by one of the largest growers in our country today. So India produces about 15 lakh carats. Of that, the Bhatwari group, which is our group, produces about 12 lakh carats. So the idea is that, through our entire production, it is not that, and Sanket will vouch for this, we can't really tell you that, no, we will, there will be just one color, I can press a button and,
So to add to that is like when people say, man-made diamond, there's this term which everyone uses. But what I think is really wrong, because when you say man-made diamond, man cannot bond atoms. We don't sit and, sit in the reactors and put the atoms one by one. So basically the machine is created by men, by human, and the process which takes place within the chambers is truly natural. Like the way it's going to grab the atoms, the bad atoms, the good atoms, it's going to do its process as it happens in the natural form. We just give it a good condition with the right gases and the right temperature for it to expand the bonds and to grab the atoms. And that's all we do. And the rest is up to the stone on how it wants to get their, the atoms to gather. They can have bad atoms, they can have good atoms that you can't control. So the whole process within the chamber is natural. So you can't really say a natural diamond. We can just call it a mined diamond and a lab grown diamond.
Got it.
That's the only difference. I feel.
Absolutely.
Sanket, what do you think? What is the importance of R&D in this particular technology? Since
R&D is the biggest game in this particular industry with CVD. I mean, as Pooja said, they are one of the biggest growers as well. So, you know, everyone's competing really, and a healthy competition, you know, and every grower is a different grower. So it's basically different minds. I cannot compare my mind to their mind. They cannot compare their mind to my mind.
Absolutely.
So what I may achieve, they cannot achieve. What they can achieve, I may not be able to achieve.
okay, so you're trying to say that the manufacturing process may differ from grower to grower, and there is no sure shot that today if you have a machine, you are going to grow.
Definitely not. Definitely
Yeah.
not. And that's the saddest thing. So what happens is like here, like when you're in Surat, I mean, you know, you're in a very healthy place, which is in Bombay, people like to hustle.
Right,
Here,
right.
people like to pull each other's leg for some reason. And what happens is here, so, you know, we meet land brokers and a few builders, and they meet us at weddings going on right now. Oh, how is CVD? CVD is good. Even we're thinking of putting machines.
Exactly.
That's great. You should go ahead and do that. You should
Sanket,
go
you
ahead.
and I
And
keep getting
I encourage people rather than telling them it's difficult. I tell them, do it, try it yourself. You'll know. You will definitely know.
When I keep getting that so much, even from the retail customers, they get so fascinated with the idea and they're like, well, how much is a machine for? I tell them it's 2 crore, 3 crores. Oh, okay, we can put in 100 CR and let's see. I said, it's not a microwave that you're buying that you press a button and it's out.
Yeah.
It's not that easy.
Yeah.
You have to have the recipe.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
so
So what
difficult.
is interesting?
Sorry, you can go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, I just to add to it, I mean, what Sanket was saying, it is interesting that every grower has their own recipe, whether these growers that are based in India or whether growers that are based out of the US, each one of them has their own way and technique of growing the diamonds. The manufacturing, the cutting, polishing stays exactly the same for everybody.
Right.
How it is grown is it is different, you know. And you know, that is what, like Sanket said, you know, that where everybody thinks that, oh, you know, today with financial capital you can go out there and, you know, start lining up machines for your own self. It's not that easy. You know, each growing unit has their own set of scientists. You know, there are dedicated scientists who are here to manage the growing output for everybody. To give you a simple context, you know, from a lay person, you know, at every second, 19 or 20 parameters need to stay constant every second. Because let's say there was a power outage, even for 1 second, that entire batch of production goes away, right? Because that carbon, you know, the separation of carbon needs to happen consistently and constantly. You know? So 24/7, there's a huge amount of not just capital investment, but you know, intelligence which has gone behind producing this. And I'm extremely proud that India has, you know, managed to scale and become the largest producers of CVD diamonds in the world today. So something
Because
to be proud
in India, the companies are not run by scientists.
So are they run by Jugaad?
No, they're not run by Jugaad, but they run by. So basically, when we came into this industry, we started it in our old factory, and now I'm sitting here. We built this space. It's 180,000 square feet of built-up area within 6 months. And I'm here in Gujarati Raburs. I'm sitting and, like, you know, like I'm talking from here to today. Last year, this day, there was a bare land here. So what happens is the way we've progressed in this, right? Because we were aggressive while getting into it, and we got into the right time. So there was the time when you had to enter this or get out of this. So there was no, and also like, so well, today as well, when I'm inside the chambers, I'm there every day, and I see something new every day. I'm learning every day. It's not like you're stable, because this will never stabilize, because every day. So today, for example, I'm getting EFG, right? And then I get a call from Bombay, like, as you know, my uncle, I know I need D. So that's what we need to work on then, like, because it keeps on changing and growing. The sizes, what we are doing as well is really difficult, because eventually the CVD plasma machines were made for optical lenses, right? Which go up to 3 to 4 mm maximum height. But going up to 8.5 mm in these reactors is not a piece of cake. Like, let me give an example. One of the biggest companies in this world who are making machines called Seiki, it's in Japan, right? We've all heard of it. If we go buy a machine from Seiki, Seiki is going to give you the machine. Seiki will set up the lab for you, but Seiki will also give you a recipe, but the recipe doesn't guarantee color. The recipe doesn't guarantee clarity. They don't guarantee anything. They say this machine can grow a diamond. They can grow a diamond, 10 cent, 15 cent. That's it. That's all they know.
That's what, by looking at recipes on YouTube, you can't cook best food.
Exactly. Exactly. With the same ingredients, with the same, so I give you 100 grams of jeera, 100 grams of chili, everything the same.
Except for
Then
Maggie,
your
nothing
food's
is
going to be different, my food's going to be. So the same way, all the minds are different. So all the growers, like all of them who we know and like are really good friends within themselves, who all are in this industry. And we all are doing a healthy business. And we want to continue in doing a healthy business. That's the only way we can succeed with the country. Like if I go and pull someone else's, like his goods are not good, you should buy my, it's not going to, his goods are going to work as well because they're a different segment. Mine are different. Someone else is different. So that's how it's going to work together.
Absolutely.
Right? And when we're saying people are putting machines, every day you'll hear someone, 2 machines, 5 machines, I've put 6 machines, I've put this. So this is like, you know, just give you basic, my 30 machines run on R&D at once. I'm sure like even with Bakul Uncle's factory is the same thing because we have a very big scale now. We can do what we want to. With 5 machines, you can do 11 R&Ds on 1 machine every year.
Yeah. Sanket, let's not discourage the entire lot who don't have too many machines at the moment.
No. That's not.
I'm not showing the reality to them. He's giving a reality.
Absolutely.
I mean,
it's a good thing. People need to get a taste of the reality. But let people having 2 or 3 machines also get into the market. Yeah? What's the harm?
No, definitely, and they should. And the world is so big. Like these machines are not going to be shut down. Like they're going to run. Like everyone's goods are going to sell.
Right. In fact, I have a spare cabin in the office. I thought I'll probably put up a machine here. Yeah.
But Mayank, instead of all becoming scientists, it's better to not reinvent the wheel, and partnerships can also be a way forward. Nothing stopping us from doing business.
That's a Harvard graduate. That's like a Harvard graduate.
So, Parag bhai, let's understand from you. Since you have been into mosenites, into natural, into CVD. I think the only difference what I understand is say the price point of a natural and a lab grown stone. That is the only difference apart from the origin of the rough. Everything else is the same. So I mean, the first question that ideally comes to my mind that are prices of these lab grown stones volatile?
Volatile.
Yeah, are they volatile or have they been more or less consistent in the last say 18 to 24 months?
So see, in the last 2 months, there has been a spike in the smaller goods.
Okay.
But if you look at the bigger goods, they've been consistently being down because obviously the production is out more. But now if I see from the time before, they're more or less stabilized. Like it's stable. Like we buy from various suppliers, like of course, Diabond is one of them and various growers. So it's about demand and supply. At particular time when I need particular goods, they might not have it. Then I have to look for another one. So everyone has their own cycle. Like Sanket also mentioned that someone is specialized in GHI color. And what I understand, even they are specialized in GHI colors. And there are particular set of people who grow only EF. So everyone has mastered their own recipes based on what they are able to sell. So your question about being volatility, yes, it is there. And it always depends on the amount of supply that is there in the market. So it's demand supply. Okay. That's what is controlling it. But yeah, in the long term, everybody is skeptical. Like as a retailer, on the growing level, it's not a problem. But as a retailer, there is always a fear that if we stock it, the prices have been going down. Like I've been selling lab-grown diamonds from 2010. And we were the first ones to start importing it when nobody knew about it. So from there to now, I've seen prices going half. Absolutely.
Oh, prices become half.
more like it's fallen down to
Definitely.
60% from 2010. Like 54 back was the pricing from Rappaport when only one player was their PDC. From there to now, it's come to 90 above. So it's a crazy difference. So that is what is the fear in the retail market. And when you answer the consumer while investing, that's their fear always, that it is not going to hold value.
Got it.
So I have a little bit of a different opinion on this. And different sort of on-ground experience as well. See, a couple of things. One is, like Parag rightly said, I think, yes, the prices have stabilized going forward. And it has also been a difference in the sense that the market it's a very small market when it comes to lab-grown diamonds, right? So very few players in this. And there have been a lot of manufacturers who had entered in the middle in this market who ended up breaking the prices as opposed to their growers. So it was the manufacturers in the middle who wanted to liquidate themselves, and hence there was a price breakdown in the middle. However, like Parag said, prices stabilized. But if you will see the trajectory going forward, and what we are also facing on ground, which I think Sanket also mentioned, is that there's so much, Mayank also, in fact, that there's so much more demand today that suppliers are actually, before you even produce, you already have your goods sold. That's the kind of situation that we're in at this point in time, right? Because US as a market has completely blown up. They've embraced these diamonds for all the benefits, whether it's eco-friendly or the affordability. And a lot of the diamond purchasers in the US have started appreciating and buying lab grown. Now it's inevitable that India is also going to see that. Also, along with that, what's happening is that the mined diamond industry is also facing its own supply issues. Today, like you said, we're at 140 million carats. In the next 10 years, because the largest mines have shut down. Argyle mine shut down in 2020. Canadian mines, one of the biggest Canadian mines is shutting down. So that 140 million carats is expected to go down to 60 million carats in the next 10 years. Absolutely. And as opposed to that, your demand is constantly rising for, diamonds. So that in the next 10 years is going to go up to 220 million carats. There's going to be a huge gap of 160 million carats, which lab-grown diamonds will have to suffice. If we'll do the back calculation, today, we are at 7 million carats. Global production of lab-grown diamonds is just 7 million. To reach up to 160 million is a huge effort. If we back calculate that equals to about 120,000 machines. And today the whole world has less than 2,000 machines. So I genuinely feel that there is going to be a huge demand supply gap when it comes to lab grown as well, which is only going to pull the prices up as opposed to pulling it down.
Got it. I think Ranveer Singh ji from SBI, I think, sir, what do you think? How important a role will the banks play in supporting, the trade grow from, like Pooja said, like from say probably 7,000 carats to, 140, 160. Like according to me, it's probably going to be more than 1,200. It's going to be going up to say 160. So what do you think? How important a role will bankers play, sir?
Yeah, first of all, I was listening carefully to Pooja, Parag, and Sanket. And I was in a dilemma in a couple of points. Actually, when we do, from a banker's point of view, I do know that the market is going to grow up. What will be the pace, that we don't know. And the first thing that State Bank has, unlike the natural diamond, we still have a negative outlook. But for the lab-grown diamond, State Bank has come out with a neutral outlook. It means the potential for growth as well as profitability are better, actually. So, but we do face the dilemma, since our the policy on the lab-grown diamond is in the work. It is getting prepared. So we do face, some of the entrepreneur, those who want to set up the machines. Some come up with the estimate that my machine is going to cost 1 crore. Some will say it is 1.25 crore. One will say it is 80 lakh. So my question will be to Sanket and Parag, that how do we actually assess that? I mean, how do we fund it actually? That which machine is So I think Sanket and Parag both can throw light on this actually.
Shows.
Parag bhai?
On machines, see, I would have little knowledge about the machines because we are not on the growing side.
Okay.
We are on the retail and branding side of we are a D2C brand.
Okay. Okay. Then Sanket would be, I think, the right person to.
He and Pooja.
Pooja, you want to go for it?
Yeah, sure. So I think, sir, in terms of pricing the machine, yes, like you rightly said, the machines are different for different growers, right? So their costs comparisons is going to be different. But I think there needs to be a structure that has to be formulated. And in fact, all growers have come together and built an association called Lab Created Diamond Association of India. So I feel there has to be more constructive meetings that have to happen with all growers coming together to try and understand how we should come up with a policy that is fair to all.
Yes.
It cannot be fair to just one person. But yes, there are certain growers, like the Bhatwari group that I belong to, or Diabon, which have been in this industry for a long time to have tested and validated the product. So we have the experience of saying what has failed, what has worked, and how it has worked for ourselves, and how we can consistently prove that with our numbers as well, right? So I think people who have that kind of long dated experience will perhaps be able to form better policies for the industry going forward. I think we are at a very nascent stage of this industry. So building a policy that is more forward looking will be something that we should be looking at.
Yeah. So there's a vague difference in numbers when you said as well, like, someone will say it's for 80 lakhs. Some of them here say we made a machine for 50 lakhs. Some of them say it's costing us 3 crores. So there's a very
wide variation,
big difference, right? And as Pooja said as well, like the only person I think who can guide you through the correct numbers of what the value is for the machine is the person who's already in this industry, right? But it's very difficult for us to give out an answer.
So I feel what I have also understood after meeting, several growers is that the cost of the machine is dependent on several aspects. Whether it is imported, whether it is fabricated locally, what the cost of the components are, what is the R&D that has gone, in the entire unit. So I feel if a bank really wants to, dig as to how much a machine would really cost, I think there are several components which we'll have to, go into, and we can probably, discuss this, directly with either of the growers if, they can probably permit, a personal one-to-one meeting, in the coming week.
Like, as I said, like, see, I think the machines which are made in India are already being occupied for most of them. But if you really want to know what the prices are, as I said, there are a few companies which I would be happy to share with you the names, and I can text them to you later on, email them to you, and maybe you can share it with so. And you can ask them for example, there's another company in Paris, there's another company in Germany. So everybody sells the machines, yes. But the key point to it is what's the recipe for the machine.
Yeah. And if you can grow it consistently.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because
the biggest challenge is that
go from 1 mm to, for example, the seeds are 0.30, 0.40 mm, and then from going from 0.40 to 140 mm, 1.40 mm, it is not a piece of cake. I mean, yeah, first round, you get the result, second round, third round, but then anything you want to make a diamond, you need to grow at least 3 mm plus to have a good shape for a stone, even for a small stone. It's really difficult for on the recipe side. The machine could probably do it, but if you've not got the right person to execute your recipe, it's not going to work.
So I think, Ranveer sir, broadly what I understood in the last 15 to 20 minutes, I think volatility, that is your inventory, will play a very big role in determining the finance. Secondly, the cost of the machines, like you rightly said, that's also extremely important. And third is probably the technology, because even if you have the capital and the manpower to, have the factory up and running, but if you don't have the technology, it's going to fail. So I think these are three aspects which, SBI or any bank will have to consider, while constructing a policy internally.
Yeah, you are a bang on. I mean, on the target. Actually, from State Bank point of view, we want to see some before funding. We are not going to fund in any new setup. We want to see if the person is already in the business and he has a reasonable success in growing. So that is where we are going to fund it. And since, as Pooja said, it is in the nascent stage, so probably the requirement of collateral is also little on higher side as compared to the natural diamond, actually.
And
So
that would
any
make
other-
it easier for the banks also, sir, not to get hit with the.
Yes. I think by next month, early next month, we should be having the policy in place. And if any requirement is there, so Sanket, I would come down to your place also.
Definitely.
Because I know you are associated with the State Bank of India. So that will give us an insight, and that our people at the head office who are formulating the policy, it will help them also understanding what are the nuances of this business, so that bank doesn't go wrong, actually. Because ultimately it hurts the industry only. You would have seen in the lab grown, there were 2 or 3 accidents, not in lab grown, in the natural diamonds, and the entire banking industry, virtually for 2, 3 or 4 years, there was no funding at all. And the industry also got a bad name, actually.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Definitely.
we all victims.
That's the main concern which I was trying to say, but I couldn't say. But you got it right.
So let's get a sense on, since we have broadly understood what lab grown is, how they are different, in comparison to natural, what the risk perception may be. Let's get a sense on, what the market is in terms of, say, the demand for the end product, be it the stone, be it a piece of jewelry. Parag, if you want to probably throw some light with respect to what the demand is globally or in India, what the Indian consumers' perception are, about a lab-grown diamond. I think that will be great for the audience.
Sure. So I would like to say demand comes after awareness. Like that's the right way to put it. There are so many consumers, they are not really aware of it. If you see, like I said, I've been into this industry since 11 years. So back in days, not even all traders knew about lab-grown diamonds. Like initial 2-3 years back in 2008, 9, 10, 11, when it was just in the research mode, and not always there was a tinge in the diamond, there was a gray tinge and all of that. The product was not up to the mark. That time, even the traders did not know about it. But now at least we are on a level that all retailers, all traders, whoever is dealing into diamonds, they know about it. But it is still not reached the consumer level, which is the most important thing. And as a consumer brand, that's what we are fighting for. So if you ask me, conversion is not a big issue, and Pooja would agree with that, because it's about the awareness, it's the reach, the visibility. If there is a demand, so for example, if a consumer is looking to buy a particular size, color, clarity of a diamond, and if she's approached with a lab-grown diamond and shown there and there, okay, fine, you're going to spend 10 lakhs on this particular grade, size, and quality, I will give you the same thing for 4 lakhs. So that becomes a turning point.
Yeah.
Right.
On the other hand, if you approach someone who is not looking to buy any diamond,
Right.
and you tell them, okay, I've got something which is otherwise you would spend 10 lakhs, I'm giving it to you for 4. She would be like, no, she should not be interested. So number one, there should be a demand of diamond.
Right.
And number two, there should be an awareness of such a thing being into existence. So when these two combinations work, there is a conversion.
Got it. So as a business owner into the same business, would you classify this as an investment, or would you classify this as an expenditure? Well,
So on that, I tell this one thing to the consumer. This is the first question a consumer always asks me, that
Right.
whether it's an investment. I answer this question with a question that, do you really think diamond is an investment? First answer me that.
Yeah.
And then I will tell you how this is a better investment. Because सबसे पहले तो ना, you need to understand as a banker, sir, Ranveer sir, आप बताइए, what is an investment? Investment is something you get a return on. I would say if you invest 10 lakhs on a diamond and you start the meter of interest, it's gone. You will never earn after selling it unless you're into the trading of diamond. You'll never earn money. For the consumer, it's an expense. So the consumer needs to understand, and especially in India, diamonds are perceived as investment value.
Yeah.
If you see worldwide, they look at it like an expense.
Right.
So,
Right.
and on the consumer level, the price at which they buy is already the retail price. So when there's a sale, if they don't sell it to the same person they're buying it from, they lose 20 to 30%, no matter what. So diamonds anyways are a bad investments. They just have a snob value. So this is what we make the consumer understand, that, okay, you're going to invest 10 lakhs in a natural diamond. After 3 years, you will be lucky if you get 10 lakhs back.
Correct.
The only reason it is being used as an investment is because if you take anything in the luxury segment of lifestyle, handbags, shoes, or anything else, nothing holds value, but diamond will hold some value compared to these bags and shoes.
Right.
That's the only reason it is probably taken as an investment. And more than that, it's as a marketing pitch that you're buying a diamond, it's an investment.
Yep.
Got
I'd
it.
just like to add to that. Sorry, Mayank, if I
Yeah,
can.
sure, Pooja, sure.
Historically, if you see diamond prices, typically every woman thinks like this. Na, अरे but मेरे diamond का price तो मैंने
बढ़
जब
गया।
ये था,
Correct.
अब जाके ये बढ़ा हुआ है. But actually, if you go to see, diamond prices have
वो inflation
only
है.
been- it's all about, yeah, exactly. It is all the FX, exchange rate appreciation that the dollar has seen.
Exactly.
That appreciation benefit is what we have received in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Diamond prices on absolute terms have actually fetched negative returns in the last 10 years.
Exactly.
Prices have gone down, but because of the FX fluctuations, we feel that we are getting that benefit. Otherwise,
Absolutely.
diamond is no longer, it should never be perceived, shouldn't have then also, should not be now also perceived as an investment
Right.
category.
I think it is one of the things that women use to convince their husbands to get the diamond to them. That telling
Yeah.
them that, okay, I'm investing your money somewhere, but she knows it that it's not.
But now with a lab-grown, women don't need men to buy diamonds.
Yeah.
We can purchase our own diamonds.
Correct. True.
So I agree with you all. I mean, I can share one anecdote with you. I believe, even for store of value, my wife had some small, that she wanted to buy that little bigger. We went to Tanishq showroom.
Right.
So they told us that we will buy only if you would have bought this from Tanishq, we would have exchanged it only then. I mean, if you
Exactly.
bought from any other diamond here, there is no way that we can exchange it for a bigger diamond, actually.
Exactly. So it's not investment.
Yeah, not even a store of value. I mean,
When we were into the national industry, when we were doing the national diamonds, this is the way example of who are the new buyers for lab grown diamond, right? So I have these guys who are in the polishing department since 10 years, 15 years old in our company. You know how it runs, right? So earlier, like, his salary is obviously increasing day by day as the work he gets is increasing, right? So back then he used to get 1 lakh, 1.5 lakh rupees a month. Today he gets 3.5 lakh rupees a month, because the amount of work he's doing. So there are a few people who have been old and, been with us since then. That guy earlier would never think of buying that thing, what he was polishing, what he's created. But today he can officially get in my store, come to my office and buy the stone because he is worth that.
Yeah.
So earlier there was no chance that he was going to be able to buy that stone because it was a natural stone. And the only difference is a stone, but and the other ones were creating that.
mm-hmm.
So there are new buyers now. There will be new buyers, and that's what I believe, and that's what I think.
Yeah.
So let us, broadly understanding, things from a supply and a demand side, let us probably debate amongst ourselves as to what we need from the several stakeholders, including the government, to make this happen. because we all are staring at probably a 70 billion gem and jewelry export market in the next by 2025. How do we make this happen? Since you all are into the business, right from the growing to the retailing and the manufacturing, what do you all think are the little lapses that we are having in terms of policy or any other fiscal matter that you all feel does require support of the government? So as a part of as a consultant to the DJAPC, which is sponsored by the Ministry of Commerce, we would love to take notes on these little things and make reasonable representations to the government, so they can assist the trade in getting to the 70 billion mark by 2025. So if I can probably just hear it from the three of you all as to what you all feel are the loopholes, what you all feel should there should be a policy in place for ABC. We would love to hear from the three of you all.
Yeah, sure. So maybe I can jump in. I think the first and the foremost, sort of deficit that we have, if I can say, is the awareness of lab-grown diamonds. And somewhere where, like, if we take US as an example, what happened in the United States 2 years ago is US Federal Trade Commission came out in the market and said that these are absolutely real diamonds.
Yeah.
The day the government, the country received a sense of validation from the government or a recognition from, an external party outside of the industry, and that being the government, it completely opened the market, for United States. And suddenly everybody, knew about lab-grown diamonds, understood lab-grown diamonds, and then they had their own choices, nobody, even till today, I don't think it is fair to say that lab-growns are going to come and take over naturals, and natural will have its own supply-demand mechanics, which will drive natural diamond industry. But lab-grown diamonds are here to stay. And all we need is recognition. And if that recognition comes from the government, that will be a huge, huge, huge plus, not only in boosting the exports, but also creating a huge domestic, like, think about it. Today, 80% of diamond purchases are done by millennials. India today has 41 crore millennials, right? Which is larger than the entire population of United States, right? So it's a huge domestic market potential also that we're looking at. And not just exports. And I think the first and foremost thing that we need is recognition. And the second is that this needs to be looked at as an independent product. It has to be a different product category. For the gems and jewelry sector also, it needs to be looked independently, because it doesn't have any imports. It's as simple as that. We don't have any import burdens. We are completely export oriented. And for those reasons, we have different economics which runs through this business. It is not a trading business. It's a manufacturing business, which is very new to the gems and jewelry sector of our country, because we've not done that. But that is what we need to look at. So the perspective needs to be changed. In the eyes of the government, in the eyes of the banking, financial institutions, this needs to no longer be looked at as an intermediary. So I think those are the two main. And the third, of course, there's heavy competition that we are facing from Chinese HPHT. So at some point, if we want to boost our own, lab-grown production in our country, we must stop that. Why should we support an inferior product like HPHT when we can do that? I understand today, through the CVD process, we are not being able to grow the smalls. But that's only because there's no economies of scale. Once I have huge scale of production, there's nothing I'm growing the rock. There's nothing stopping me from doing smalls also today, right? But it's just that it's becoming more expensive today because, my scale is less. But the minute I expand my scale, naturally, nothing stops me from doing the smalls as well. But those smalls are certainly going to be far more superior in terms of quality than HPHT. So I think that the government should be looking at, Chinese HPHTs and banning that. And there is import, there should be some level of import duties, which we must, because typically, even if we see in GJAPC data, we'll see there's X number, like $800 million worth of exports which have happened in lab grown, but there's $600 million worth of imports which are coming in the country, which are not the true representation of the industry, right? So there needs to be something that stops that. We don't import, right? So apart from the HPHTs, which cannot be $600 million, so we need to stop people from, I don't know, stop those kind of import transactions which are happening. So I think these are my thoughts on where the government and the financing institutions can help the industry grow in a much more organized, systematic, and a scalable manner.
All right. I mean, if you ask me personally, after speaking to several growers, something that I fear is, now since these are not mined diamonds, it's not that the mine is really physically present in a particular country. It's a machine. I can go set up the machine in any country that is offering me a tax holiday and start a unit there. Like, I don't know, since y'all are growers. So whether that thought has, passed your minds.
Mayank, I'll tell you something. Japan, has Seki, right? They have the largest technology of producing these machines. Not even one CBD growing unit exists in Japan. Not even one. They don't grow over there. The reason is there is also climatic conditions. There are so many things that need to work in the favor of growing that you can't just set up. You can't say, okay, tomorrow I want to go and set it up in Iceland. It's not possible. Even Japan is not doing that. Think about it.
Right.
Even Japan is not being able to do that.
So I think the government, they should,
So the government needs to realize that India is so pro this whole expansion story today, right? That we need to milk the opportunity today, as opposed to tomorrow. Of course, it's technology. Anything can evolve, anything can happen. But the fact is that today India has produced, India has validated, India has successfully scaled, and India is continuing to rise even in terms of the consumer market. The consumption market base also exists in our country. So what is then lacking is recognition, support, in terms of expansion. So those are the things where the government can definitely, one, recognition. Modi ji says even one statement of lab grown diamonds, no, I think we will be through. That's all we need at this point in time.
True.
Waiting for the day he buys a stone for his mother.
That'll kill it.
So I think India should come up with maybe some kind of subsidy in special economic zones to promote this, which would generate employment and get foreign exports. I think that would be one of the ideal approaches, and subsidize interest rates from banks to fund this. That would give some boost to it.
So I also, during the conversation, I could make out that, electricity is also a very huge component as a part of the manufacturing. So probably, electricity subsidies may also would help. I'm not too sure. If probably somebody, if Sanket, wants to second that.
I mean, of course, it's one of our, one of the biggest costs is electricity, right? And definitely they do give us the 15% on the new startup business for the 5 years. But for what I understand, that is still not enough on what we are doing and on what scale you're doing on. So I'm sure, they should work out something on that. And as you said, we've set up the labs in India. People may not really do the same. People definitely will think of doing something different because that's the only advantage they'll have not coming to India. Of course, they can export, they can export their rough from elsewhere and bring it to India, polish them and take it back up. So people might do that. People actually might think of doing that because it'll be easier for them in terms of, subsidies and, tax holidays and things like that. And a good businessman would definitely do that. Would definitely. I have a facility which is really big. Maybe if I'm thinking of expanding it, maybe,
We have actually got a question from, one of the participants. He's like, how do you deal with, the increasing competition in the market? and how do you stop people from entering? I mean, well, the only thing that I would like to comment is, you can't really stop people from entering, but I personally believe that you need a regulatory policy in order to regulate who is growing what and how much. I mean, this is just a thought that comes to my mind. If somebody wants to probably add on to this as to how we can regulate this business to make sure that business remains clean and it remains in the country, that is the most important thing.
You're right. So transparency is the most important thing amongst this, and like there should be a cartel amongst the growers. So I remember a conversation with Pooja back in Bangalore when we met, and she mentioned this, that there should be a council which should have all the growers on the panel, and then there should be a price control. See, the most worrisome in the entire thing is the price control, like how beautifully De Beers has controlled the pricing of natural diamonds, and that's the reason for that perception building of diamonds. Now, wherever the topic of these lab-grown diamonds comes up, the only thing is pricing. The argument and the fear in the consumer is the price won't sustain, which is not really good for the market. So it's only from the growers who can control the pricing. So that regulation and that trust and syndicate should be there. And then we are sorted.
That's right. But Pooja also said that, the growers are controlling the prices, but there are a few manufacturers who want to liquidate their goods, are giving it up.
But see, that will always exist. For example, आपको natural diamond आज भी chance में कितनी बार मिल ही जाता है ना? But consistency will never be there. So, and it is in every industry. You talk about Raymond's, you talk about any brand, anything textile, like we have a textile business also, you can't control that. So it's only amongst the big picture.
Right.
Wherever there is a consistency, that's where you can control. Otherwise, one-off deals, you can never stop that. And I think you should not even worry about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, price control is what is needed.
Okay, got it.
And Sanket, I have one question. Some of the players approached us. They just want to set up just a cut and polished unit. What they are planning, like they will import the lab grown from abroad and they will just do the cut and polishing. Do you think that will be a sustainable model, or?
As a grower, like I totally don't understand that, because I mean, I think Mr. Pragbhai would be the one who would be better to answer that, because
what's that?
So he's asking, there are a few people who've approached them to they want to set up a manufacturing unit, just a manufacturing unit, and they will import
cut and polish only.
Cut and polish,
Cut and polish only, purely.
Yeah, so that is not rocket science. That is just like how you would fund a natural diamond cutting polish. It's no different from that, because the growing up till, it's like mining. It's machine mining or earth mining. That process is different.
No, Prag, it's a little different. I mean, my first question was that where are you going to get the rough? So probably their plan is to import the rough, like Pooja said, HPHT or maybe CVD from abroad, and cut and polish it here. And simply it will be purely a cut and polished unit. So they want to they want to play in that area only. I don't know whether that will be
business by itself. So it's a good business by itself. Like it's like allied industries. Like someone is just spinning the yarn, someone is just sizing it. So it's similar. If someone is just growing it, then there would be a unit. Maybe some growers outsource their cutting and polishing from a certain person. That's normally how it's a sister concern who would do it, because it's the admin headache which you are giving away. It's like a job work, labor oriented.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's exactly like the natural, like whether he's going to set up the facility to do the cut and polishing for CVD, HPHT or natural is going to be the same.
Yeah. So let me explain with a different analogy. For example, any brands for that matter, Tanishq, they do not manufacture anything by themselves. They outsource it. They would contract a labor, give them the designs, get the designs outsourced from somewhere and get it manufactured from 10 different manufacturers. So in the same way, these cutters would do that for different growers maybe. And this is already happening in the industry, I believe.
Parag bhai, there was somebody from the audience who wanted to know how the response of lab-grown jewelry has been in our country so far. Like we all know the American story, how robust the demand is. But what is probably the most common question that probably pinches you or people don't understand, or how has been the response from the Indian crowd?
So response, like I said, our conversion rate is very good. It's the challenge is only the awareness.
Okay.
So which is by means of marketing. So if you go back to 2000, before that, if you year market as 2000, before that, the diamond aspiration value was not there so much.
Got
It
it.
was after the campaign of De Beers, a diamond is forever, things changed drastically. So
Right.
it is the aspiration which built the awareness and the visibility and the reach that they got. And then the story of engagement ring being thrice the money of your salary, that changed everything in the bridal market. So
Absolutely.
similarly, if like I always say that the more brand should come in, so that if more people start talking about it, more people will know about it, and the market is huge for everyone to coexist. So if there is competition, there is also a market for it. If
Right.
you're doing it solo, then the market also gradually responds to it. So conversion is not an issue, awareness is.
I think even when this was probably 2 weeks back, when the Pope actually blessed the lab-grown
Yes,
stone,
yes.
this was a complete game changer, at least for the
No,
international
but
markets.
I agree with Pooja. We are waiting for Modi ji to bless it. मित्रों लैब ग्रोन डायमंड ही अच्छा है, बस एक बार वो बोल दे.
It's actually it is the purest definition of Atmanirbhar Bharat, since it is it is grown in the country, it is cut and polished in the country, and it is exported. So
Absolutely.
I think that is something which all of us have really understood. If anything else that somebody else would like to add.
So since they're eco-friendly, amongst our Jain friends, we also tell them it's a Jain diamond. No, nobody's been killed in the process.
Yeah.
And it's not below the earth. So it's कांदा लहसुन जैसे नहीं, जमीन के ऊपर है सब कुछ.
Yeah, absolutely. जब हम जैन लोग खाना नीचे का नहीं खा सकते,
So
तो
at
diamond
least from the Jain community, from Maharashtra or someone, we want that please go for lab diamond. It is a Jain diamond.
I'll try this with my wife, when my anniversary is coming up. So I can probably get back then.
Yeah, so I just wanted to add to what Parag said in terms of the Indian context. I think what has happened is that, like he said, that yes, awareness is not, it is not as much, but awareness has drastically increased as well with the few players that have come into the market. And what we have seen is that the purpose behind purchasing lab grown diamonds is no longer कि अरे ये सस्ता diamond है इसलिए हमें ये लेना चाहिए. No.
Correct.
It's like the cherry on the cake when they see that it is it costs only so much. But the idea is that the younger audiences always are looking to start supporting the concept of sustainability, and this really is a true product that says that really talks eco-friendly, right? In the luxury space, when countries today are talking about stopping. I mean, there are sustainable development goals happening at the country level, right? So inevitably, the luxury market is becoming the first market that's taking a hit in terms of stopping all the non-sustainable stuff. That's why we have electric vehicles, we have recycled fashion. And here is this one product in the gems and jewelry industry waiting to be consumed as a sustainable product, right? So it's working really well because brides come to, like for Limelight, we are partnered with 15 retail stores in the country. We started in 2019 and we're partnered with retail stores in Hyderabad, Bangalore, Chennai, Delhi, Gujarat, Ahmedabad, and Mumbai. And it is all about these brides coming and asking us that we want our engagement ring to be a lab grown. That's all we care
No blood
about.
on my hands.
No, yeah. And I mean, that's the, reality that we're facing on ground. So consumers are very fast in terms of acceptance. They understand it. A lot of retailers have this mind, they have this fear in their minds today that how can I place natural and lab growns under the same, setup. I mean, we have De Beers themselves who's doing it. De Beers is there in mining. They have a brand called Lightbox, right? We have Parag Bhai here who's doing it. So actually, if you go to see, there is no resistance from the consumers. The minute you are open, the minute you are transparent that this is what it is, consumers are willing to accept everything under one retail store.
Plus, the consumer doesn't want to save money. So when they come in, the satisfaction of purchase is not there. So if the bride is coming with a mindset of spending 5 lakhs on an engagement ring, she would spend 5 lakhs, but rather than 1 carat, she would go for a 2 carat stone.
Exactly. She
So
upgrades and goes.
yes,
Absolutely.
so you get a better value rather than saving. So you make your buck, you have your same turnovers, but giving a better value to the consumer.
So I think let's take just one last question. Somebody wants to know if, Tanishq, Kalyanwala, all the established retail stores, if they are, what is your opinion if, whether they are going to get into lab grown in the near future? Are they going to be your competitors? Probably for Pooja or for Parag. I think Parag's already in all three. So Parag's a competitor for all. So Pooja's only in the CBD. So probably we should ask her.
Yes. No, absolutely. I mean, sorry, Parag, go ahead.
So you're right. So we also started with a fashion brand recently in the name of Cutify. So my mindset was getting the entire spectrum of jewelry, be it fashion jewelry, luxury, natural diamonds, lab diamonds, moissanite, or anything. So, but since it was fashion jewelry, we had to do it under a different brand name. Otherwise, it will confuse the hell out of the consumer. So I believe that you should go to the biggest market size and all the spectrum. When you think jewelry, think Fiona. That was the idea.
Right.
Yeah, I know, but I feel that everybody is 100% going to get into this. There is no calling back on this. In fact, Aura has come out with their own brand called Diva in lab-grown diamonds. So one of the legacy brands of our country has already jumped into lab-grown diamonds. It is just about time when Tanishq, Malabar, Kalyan, I'm sure they will all be a part of this industry very, very soon.
Absolutely. So I think, if most questions are answered and most concepts are clear, we can probably, put an end to this amazing session. I would like to thank Pooja, Ranveerji, Parag and Sanket for, giving their time in, in bringing about awareness, which in fact is the most important thing, which is the most important thing like you all mentioned. And we should in fact do such sessions frequently so that we can educate the audience on different aspects of the lab grown ecosystem.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.